Ladies and gentlemen, so let's get started with our session and on programmatic marketing. But first up, we have with us our presenter, Mr. Ashish Sahni, who's the Head Digital Marketing Passenger Vehicle Business Unit with Tata Motors. He's responsible for the digital marketing initiatives for Tata Motors Passenger Vehicle Business Unit in India. In fact, prior to joining the Tata Motors, he was also heading the digital marketing for Jet Airways India as well as global, and comes with a rich experience of 15 years in the digital marketing domain. So before we get started with the panel discussion, so first up I'd like to invite our presenter. Let's have a huge round of applause to welcome on stage Mr. Ashish Sahni.
Good morning, everyone. So the session which you are currently, we are going to talk about programmatic. So I'm not here to tell you what programmatic is all about. I think everyone knows enough and I've heard about the subject. So the idea of coming to this forum and talking about programmatic is to share how Tata Motors or at Tata Motors, we see programmatic from an application perspective. And in doing so, what I'm going to do is I'm going to share some perspective or views on programmatic marketing. This is what you are seeing is a typical journey of a car buyer. It all starts with a subconscious thought about the car where he's open to the possibilities. Now what happens is that there are certain developments or certain events that takes place in his life. So for an example, he starts his new job, he gets a promotion, he gets married, and that's when he gets firmer in terms of buying a car. This is the situation, this is the stage where he gets really confused. Why? Because there are so many factors to choose from. And basis his financial need and the capability that he has, he starts his journey. And when he starts his journey, he meets up with many people. And he understands, he goes to web, and he gets more and more clearer and firm in his decision to which car to buy. And at the end, basis his financial capability and the deal that he gets from the car buyer, he buys the car. And he shares his experience to others. Now, what is important is to see that this is a very complex and long journey. Why? Because at this point of time, he is exposed and being spoken to millions of advertisers, social media, auto aggregators, your display videos, your everything, and so on and so forth that you see. So for us as a marketer, there are three big challenges. And this is what I'm going to talk about, that how at Tata Motors we identified and we saw that what we can do about it. So what are those three big challenges? Number one, how do we know our media consumers' journey better? Second, how do we reach out to them efficiently? And third, how do we attribute conversions to the right channel? This is very much important for a traditional company like us to identify. And let me share it with you that these findings that we have got are initial findings. It is not carved in stone, let me tell you. Because we are going to improve on this, and with the technology improving, I think we will have the next time or the next year when I'm going to be here, I'm going to talk about 3 more things that we have taken the step ahead. But for now, we will concentrate on these 3 challenges that we have. So the slide, what it shows is, as of now, if you see, the planning that goes is completely placement-led. And it is not journey-led. Each media buy, if you see, is a silo. And that is how our agency and technology partners, they have also come up in their whole understanding about the subject. And each of them, they understand this part of the project, so a very small part. As a result of which, there is no information flows that happens between the channels. We just don't know. So if I may ask today, do the media consumers or the consumers, they move in a very linear direction? No. Right? They move across devices, they move across browsers, they move across channels. So it will be our assumption to come up with any inference will lead us astray. More so in India, at least what we have seen from a car buyer perspective, two things is coming as a change. One is the mobile usage and the price sensitivity. These are the two most prominent things that is, that we are facing. So it's not easy that I show an ad and I expect that the product will be bought. No, it doesn't happen that way. And the confusion leads to, since there is no consolidation that takes place, so the information flow is completely and is silos, and we don't know how to look at trying to map the media journey. Further, our targeting is completely based on demographic, geographic, income, gender. And the best thing is the rule of operating at a frequency of 3 or 4 across publishers. That is what we do. Any media plan that comes, we say, okay, you take a frequency cap of 3, you take a frequency cap of 4, and go across the publishers. What happens? This is nothing but what we say as spray and pray that our media campaign will work. And this leads to a very, very high spillover. And in result, what happens is that we go back to them, and to many of them who are not interested in my car, but I show him, and I show him multiple times, which leads, of course, very logical, to inefficiency, and as a result of which, my cost per acquisition goes high. And then I start questioning the channel in itself, that whether digital channel is worth investing to generate the amount of leads that we are looking into. Third, this is my favorite, and this is what I have been struggling for long since the time I have joined this organization, the right attribution. I think everyone today would agree that we completely rely on the last click. That what is the last click attribution that takes place? We hardly give any credit to those vehicles who have assisted in that whole complete journey. And because of that, the whole effectiveness of the vehicle is not known. And we end up with one or the other partners that this is where it is coming through, but we are not taking a bigger picture of this. Hence, we were forced, and in a very positive way, what we did is we created intelligence. And we created intelligence by marrying data with technology through programmatic. So in true sense, this is what is programmatic. So if you see today in this forum, it is talked about programmatic marketing, but in many places if you go, people talk about programmatic buying. Is it just buying? Our view is no. It is not just about buying. It's about consolidation, it's about attribution, and it's about creating efficiency. So technically, if you see, it is the amalgamation of three beautiful things that you have with you. You have data, you have media buy, and you have creativity. So programmatic gives you to bring all the three components in one place. That's the beauty of this. So that you are able to say the right thing to the right consumer at the right time. What you see as an example is very relevant, which we implemented. Now today I can easily marry my website data with Google data, with search intent data, And I can create very, very user-targeted messaging of what he has seen. So for an example, what it shows as an example is, for an example, someone has searched for safety economy car. So the right way for me to tap him is to first show with the airbags that we have in our car. Now, if he doesn't do any action on that, then I'm going to show him the economy. Still, if he is not able to, do any action to this, I will not go after him. There is no point in me going after him again and again. I mean, there has to be an end, and we have to create new customers for us. And this results in, not just the last click, but the deduplicated clicks or the attribution thing. And let me tell you, today we are able to, with our initial results, we are able to identify those publishers who have given us good results in terms of discovery, those who have given us results in terms of our consideration and some action. So there are publishers who are great in terms of reach, there is someone who has the great affinity, and somewhere who looks at the action. Everyone has its role to play. And thankfully today, we are able to, manage our medias pretty better. And the end goal, of course, is bringing in efficiency in the money that we spent. And to share with you, in our last campaign, we were able to save 25% of the saving came from all this what I'm showing you. And there are more to it. Because we went a little smarter, we believed in this whole concept of it, and we measured it to the T. So this was all the challenges that were there. Now what I'm going to do is, I'm going to marry my challenges with the steps that we took at Tata Motors. So first and foremost, we moved ourselves away from the placement-based approach to the journey-based approach. And in doing this, we did two things. Very simple. We measured the purchase cycle, and the second is we created segment audience. This is the most critical thing for us. Now today, double-click gives us an opportunity, or it has the capability to map the search intent data who is coming to us and makes us more knowledgeable in terms of how to reach out to him. And basis which we were able to create very, very targeted campaigns, we were targeted creatives at each level, be it at the consideration, be it at the search intent, or be it at the converted audience. This was the most important thing, one of the most important things that we did. As a discipline, you can say that. Second, this is a very familiar slide that you would have all, kind of seen, that our current media plan comes across 10 publishers, 3 frequency multiplied by 10, 20, 15 to 20 times frequency that we are doing. We realized that this will not work for us for long if we have to, look into how we are planning to work on this. So we created a single technology stack that allows us to deduplicate it. For us, what is important is that we reach out to new customers. And this technology stack helped us in reaching that. And let me share with you that what we have realized is 90% of the deduplicated reach comes from just 5 publishers. You don't need to, go everywhere. And last, and the most important thing. So, there is a saying that don't judge fish by its ability to climb a tree, right? So each media has its own strength and weaknesses. Don't look at a last click picture, please. I mean, that is what we have realized. See everything very holistically. And basis which you will be able to give attribution to the right channels. Now, if what you see on the right hand side in terms of the conversions that you see, you will find that there are total conversions, there are search conversions, search live through video and display, and search live through video alone. So after we did this activity, or we implemented programmatic, we knew what will be the role of video, what will be the role of display, and how much percentage of it will contribute to it. Now, this may vary basis, again, hatch or a SUV and a sedan. That is what we are expecting. And as I mentioned to you, it's a very initial study that we have got. But we are trying to implement this in other spheres as well, so that we are able to then come out with very concrete answers to each of these three verticals that we have. And last, which is most important, that everyone will ask, that what is the performance? All this was good. What was the performance that we got? In true sense, we were able to double our conversions. Our cost per lead, because that's what is the most important thing, it went down. And as a result of which, we were able to do the savings. Now, something which is missing out here, which I have not put categorically because we are still in the process of, the closures takes a little bit time, is the final conversion. So now the fourth, column that we are planning to, we are in the process of putting it down, is that what is the final conversions that we have got. And I can tell you after this, the story will look really, really much more clearer. But today, as we speak, we have got really good insights with us that which formats work for us, which publishers at which stage we need to go after. While there will be a little, kind of a spillovers that will take place, which is fine with us, but at least we are getting there. And that is what is the most important thing that we felt for Tata Motors, is important, because we as a brand, we have multiple products. If I keep spending that much of amount in each of these products, I think the budget is limited, but the expectation is unlimited. So we had to make a choice on this. And thanks to programmatic today, we are really feeling confident in the way we kind of do a plan. So to conclude, I just have three things to share with you, which you may want to, look from a brand side of the story and implement it. Move from a placement-based planning to journey-based planning. This will help. And don't just look at, spraying and praying and then thinking that our campaign will work. Let's show the 3 of frequency and big ads, and tomorrow nothing happens, but it just leaves at the clicks and the impressions, nothing more than that. Because every penny that you are spending is very important. And last, this is what we have learned. Programmatic is not about just buying. It's about consolidation. It's about attribution and bringing in that efficiency. So thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak in this forum. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sahni. Well, I'm going to request you to remain on the stage to join the panel. And on that note, I'm going to invite our speakers as well. I'm going to request you to please take your seats as well. Thank you very much indeed for sharing your perspectives on how programmatic marketing has worked to the advantage of Tata Motors. And then especially the do's and don'ts, because don'ts are also important, or else programmatic marketing can become problematic. So thank you so much for sharing that. On that note, it's time to invite our set of panel members as well as they spearhead a very interesting panel discussion. First up, I'd like to invite our session moderator, the Vice President Sales and Strategy with Vserv. May I please invite Mr. Nadeesh Ramachandran. Let's have a round of applause to welcome Mr. Nadeesh on the stage. He has an illustrious career that spans more than a decade across functions with primary focus on sales and marketing. And prior to his current assignment, he has also led the retail, QSR and real estate verticals for Google India. Our next panel member, ladies and gentlemen, he has 17 years of experience in the digital advertising and search marketing arena, having worked at Media West as well as Mindshare, where he ran the IBM and Nike digital accounts. Please put your hands together for the Vice President, Client Development, Asia Pacific with X-Axis. May I please invite Mr. Henry Stokes. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Moving on to our next speaker, who comes with more than 15 years of experience. In fact, he's a chief business officer at craftsvilla.com, responsible for product, marketing categories, supply and operation functions. His core responsibility is to understand the customer and also grow the business while creating the right experience for the customer. Let's invite on stage Mr. Manish Kalra. Let's have a round of applause, ladies and gentlemen, for Mr. Kalra as well. And that brings us to our final panel member, ladies and gentlemen. He's been involved in versatile roles throughout his career, ranging from strategy formation at all the levels, as well as analytics at Levi Strauss, USA, to the best-in-class engagement practices with MakeMyTrip.com. May I please invite Mr. Hitesh Malhotra, the CMO at Nykaa. This is our first panel discussion for the day 2 of the conclave. Let's have a huge round of applause, ladies and gentlemen. Let's welcome all of our panel members. I'm going to request Mr. Nadeesh to take it over from here. Over to you, sir.
Thank you so much. Can you guys hear me? Is this working? Okay. Interesting panel, and thanks Ashish for kicking that off with that interesting presentation. I've been in digital for quite a few years now, but I spent a lot of time trying to understand what programmatic is. And it took me, in my previous avatar, I was with Google, and it took me about more than 7-8 months and many sessions with the programmatic gurus at Google to really understand what programmatic is. And before this session, I was doing a little bit of research to really understand the real definition of programmatic. And it's actually much simpler than I would have thought it out to be. And it took me by surprise how simple the definition actually is, because I never really did research it for some reason. And I just want to do a show of hands. How many people here understand what programmatic marketing or programmatic buying or programmatic advertising really means? You see 4 hands. 5. Really? Wow. Okay. So hopefully by the end of this 45 minutes or so, you can go out of this room and say you have at least a little bit of understanding of what programmatic really means, and give you a sense of how marketers, at least those on the panel, are using programmatic, both from a performance standpoint as well as from a brand standpoint, and end the session by some clear do's and don'ts for you as you're getting into this space. So the interesting part about this panel is that every time I go for a meeting, whether it is with a CMO or with an agency, the word programmatic gets used probably 50 times in 20 sentences, right? So there's a lot of talk about programmatic. But I suspect that many people like you in this room don't really know what it means, but the term is interesting, so we use it a lot, right? So what I'll do is I'll start by just going on the panel and ask people for 2 things. 1, a quick intro about themselves, and 2, what they think programmatic is all about. So Henry, you want to start?
Sure. Thanks for letting me start, because hopefully I won't repeat anybody. Programmatic, I mean, I've worked at Xaxis just over 5 years. And Xaxis describes itself as a programmatic audience company. So we try and simplify the definition in just the fact that we use data to target ads, and we use technology to buy ads. And so really it is the process of buying specific users based on data and using technology. And I guess if I look to a related world that we may have a better understanding of, the movement and the growth in programmatic media in our world, in our marketing world, I would say similar to the automation and use of technology in, stock buying in the world of finance. So it's an interesting sort of, comparison to make, but effectively, we move from having face-to-face negotiations to moving to electronic trading, and then moving to using computers to decide which stocks to buy and which to sell, and making those trades in real time. So that's essentially the movement that we're going through in media. We are bringing more data and technology and automation to the way that we are buying advertising online. And my final point on this, it's not just about performance advertising. Automation, data, technology is, it's in every part of our media mix. And I think that's something that's going to grow even further.
Hi, this is Manish. So to answer your question, Nadeesh, programmatic, it's a jargon. It's a jargon, and usually jargons have a smoke screen, and behind them is something very simple. So about this jargon, the way I would put it, it's the use of technology, which is enabling a marketer to target its audience at the right place at the right time with the right message. Now, this technology has a lot of algorithm behind it, which would help you optimize for a certain objective, which you have as a marketer. So you can choose to be it as a brand objective, or it can be a performance objective, or it can be sales objective. But ultimately, it's using software to target your audience, knowing your audience well, and then going after them in an effective manner. That's how I'd put it. Yeah.
Thanks. Ashish? I know you've already spoken a bit about it, but...
Our view is that it's all about intelligence. It's what Manish said, that it is not just, jargon is one word to it, but how you look at, creating intelligence by using three things, which is data, what you're buying, as well as the creative. And then, coming out with a beautiful story out of it, which leads to bringing in the right attribution and leading to efficiency.
Yeah, I think it's a result of a lot of activities that have happened over the decade where people were just looking for the last click attribution results and not able to figure out the wholesome effect of different media buy. So basically, I think it's a solution that kind of helps the marketer understand that how one channel contributes to the other channel in terms of getting the ROI in the end. So I think that this technology has emerged out of a need where people are not able to understand that why they're getting probably $2 out of every $1 spent on media A and not getting anything in media B, wherein now it's kind of more comprehensive to understand that why and how the media B is contributing to media A, and maybe the attribution should be in that place. So I think it's a very cause and effect technology.
So I heard data a lot, I heard automation, and I heard efficiency, right? And I was telling you, I did a little research on what this definition really is for programmatic. And I went to IAB, who's considered the industry body for the internet, and I wanted to see how do they define programmatic, right? So their definition of programmatic is actually very, very simple. It is simply the automation of buying and selling inventory. That's it, right? So going from the traditional form of, like Henry mentioned, a face-to-face meeting, followed by 20 emails, followed by a physical RO or an IO, that method of buying is transformed into complete automation, where I don't need to pick up the phone and speak to somebody. I don't need to send an email to somebody. It all happens within the system. And obviously you layer it with data, you layer it with other elements that enrich that inventory to be more relevant for you, right? Now, let me throw something to the performance advertisers on this panel, right? So Manish and Hitesh. So programmatic is a platform where, across platforms, you buy programmatic on CPM, right? And you're hoping for some outcome from that programmatic buy. And today, increasingly, we're seeing, as digital in India especially is proliferating, you're seeing a lot of new age digital marketers coming on board who don't want to take the risk of doing this kind of buy, right? So I want an outcome, which could be a sale, or which could be an app install, or which could be a lead. And I want to partner with somebody who will give me an outcome. And I don't really care how that outcome is delivered. So what's the role of programmatic in that sort of performance buying?
I think it's ultimately a role of the marketer, which comes on top of the programmatic layers that you built in. So how much are you on top of your data? How do you know which channel is interacting with your consumers and delivering you the right kind of results? How effectively are you able to attribute and track it back to this particular channel? And ultimately, and all marketers define their own matrices internally. So let's say, even if you're buying on CPM, what is your effective cost per acquisition through this channel? How do you optimize this channel for finding out, hey, this message on this kind of audience insight got me so much CTR, which made it more effective in terms of driving the clicks to my site, and how many of them finally converted into a purchase? So that's where the role of a marketer would come in, while there would be software and there would be programmatic. Ultimately, what are you optimizing for as a team, as a leader, is what would define how effective you are on each of these channels.
So if I was to put you on the spot and ask you, how much of your digital spend today is programmatic versus the traditional way of buying, where still a lot of digital buy happens in the IO format? So what would be the percentage that you would say is programmatic?
It's increasing significantly. To tell you, let's say if some of the channels have mastered this, and I can take the names of, let's say, a FB or a Google or some of these places where you have audience insights, you can map your audience by interest, you can target them by age group, you can just buy the media and optimize for an end result. So it's increasing significantly. It's already double digits and growing significantly, I'll put it.
Interesting. So in the US, roughly this year, we're expecting 65% of all display budgets to be bought or to be used programmatically, which I think is a huge, huge move. In India, I think we're still in early stages of programmatic, especially on the display front, right? So Hitesh, what's your journey been on programmatic? Are you using a lot of it? How are you seeing the impact of it?
So there are two things to it. One is that we are using it right now, but we are depending more on the premium inventories rather than the open exchanges. Because see, at the end of the day, I'm not sure about how much time one would spend on website A or B, but I'm pretty sure about how much time someone would spend on Facebook, right? So A is right now, we are a little cautious. We are going very streamlined in terms of what is the kind of inventory we are targeting. And eventually our spends or increment will come from the open exchange that we know about. But we are just waiting, as we discussed earlier, for that right moment where the attribution across devices is optimal. Right? The moment I'm confident as a marketer running my business that I can catch the same guy over any device, and he's the most important guy, I think that's a time when I'll be more open in my mind to the exchanges. So I would say right now probably the spend would be probably somewhere close to 10 to 11% on programmatic, but I see it going to at least 20 to 30, especially in the field that we are in is very aspirational. It needs a lot of imagery because beauty you cannot tell until you show it, right? So I think for us, it'll be like very important, but we are taking cautious steps right now.
But that's an interesting point you made, right? So, and somewhat contradictory to what Ashish was saying. So you're still focused on using programmatic, but using it for placement-led buy, rather than using it for either journey-led buy or audience-led buy.
Yeah. And there's a reason, because Ashish has seen a lift, which kind of enforces his belief in buying and rather than user-led. In terms of my lifts, I could not kind of gather too much out of it. And I know that I have to open up the funnel more and kind of get more people rolling into Google search. But for me, I would say the lift was not that significant to kind of place more bets on the open exchanges as of now.
Interesting. Henry, yeah.
Yeah, thank you. I'll just take a few of those points because there's a few things there. First of all, the concept of buying on outcomes. So, a company like Xaxis only getting paid when we deliver a sale or a lead or something like that. I think that's okay. I think that marketers that want to mitigate risk and push that risk down to media companies or programmatic companies, is a natural thing. The important thing to understand there is that when a client locks in at a particular CPA, if through my platform I can generate efficiencies, I can improve the campaign, I can make it work better, the only person benefiting from that improvement is going to be me. Okay, because the client's locked in at a CPA. So it depends on the risk. If I always say if a client feels confident and feels as though that they believe that improvement will come and we will optimize, and I think the point that was made that if it didn't work, this is something you need to work at and you need to refine over time. So I would encourage people to sort of bolt in and try and benefit as an advertiser from the efficiencies that will come. The point about premium placement-led buying through programmatic, nobody wants to buy poor quality media. I mean, if we had a show of hands in the room, I mean, it just doesn't, compute. So certainly, I believe you can programmatically buy and you can select particular users, particular audiences to deliver ads to across premium media. Okay? Programmatic does not equal not premium. And I think Marissa Meyer was the one that first sort of coined that phrase around that, the CEO of Yahoo. So, we as a company are very focused on ensuring that all media has a layer of verification. Is it viewable? Is it bot and fraud free? And if those things qualify, then we put media out, and that is the media that we target for clients. So we can premiumize and ensure the quality of media, and we can also deliver ads across set websites, but select the audiences within those websites. That's the key.
But to push you a little bit more on that, fraud is something that is increasingly becoming a concern for marketers across the board, right? And a lot of fraud attribution is going to programmatic buying because it's happening in automated ways, it's happening through technology, so I don't know where it's appearing, and I don't know whether it's a real human or if it's a bot. How do you address that sort of big downside today or big challenge to scale the business?
Yeah, it's an industry issue, and we cannot shy away from dealing with that collectively. So it does require companies who are in this space to have technology layers within their business to ensure that ads are not fraudulent, that clicks are not fraudulent, and that ads are viewable. And we have technology in our business that measures the viewability, that monitors for fraud and for brand safety. And again, the other thing is, when I look at some campaigns and I've delivered a certain result down here and a competitor has delivered a result up here, and I get beaten over the head and told that I'm not getting another cent of money from that advertiser. Generally speaking, if a result seems too good to be true and it is standing out above everyone else, it's probably fraud. And I think we've got to just wake up and smell the coffee there. So, there's a certain amount of realization that needs to come from that we can't just chase big numbers, and we've got to chase real numbers. And finally, the metrics that we measure on. We reward a high click-through rate, or we get excited by a low cost per click. Those are easy metrics to achieve through fraudulent ways. So if a client is saying, I want a super high click-through rate and I want a super low CPC, then that encourages bad behavior by media vendors, because they will just chase, fraudulent placements. They will optimize towards fraud to achieve those goals. You've got to actually think about your metrics to say, I'd rather actually just hit my audience, and I want to verify that with a third-party verification measurement, or I want to achieve an outcome deep down on the client website that is less susceptible to being driven by fraud. If you're in those click-through rate CPC objectives and you're giving those to media vendors to achieve, you're opening yourselves up for risk of fraud.
I want to come back to Ashish now, and two questions. One, even today, across the board, marketers as well as media planners continue to focus on placement over audience, right? So while audience is a great talking point, the execution is still on content, right? So one, what prompted that move as a large brand marketer? And two, how much of a role did the agency ecosystem play in your movement towards programmatic? And do you think, as an ecosystem, we are geared to move from 10% today to 30% in the next 12 months?
Very good question. Actually, the answer is simple. Necessity is the mother of invention. When you have limited budgets, right, what do? So once you will spend, the other time again you are asked too many questions. Then you scratch your head and you try to look out for answers. And then when you find the answer, you have to believe in it. So to be very honest with you, so that is what led us, the budget constraint and then the ecosystem. Ecosystem plays a very, very big role, is my firm belief. And especially for, players like us who is quite traditional that we term as, right? Today, I am so confident, and what I talked about in my previous session, if I did, was because three people came together. One is the client, the other is the agency, and the third is the publisher. I mean, what I mean about the publisher is the technology partner. There is a firm, the belief has to be there to do it. You know, you have to take a risk and you have to live with that risk. And that is what we took, and we found the returns out of it. These are initial results that have come in. But it is quite encouraging, and it gives a boost to me and my team. It gives a boost to my organization that, hey, this is something new that's coming in, and the team tried, and they have we could have failed also. Right? I mean, like they said that, it has not worked, which is fine. But to me, if it is working out, that brings a belief. As far as the content, placement and this is concerned, see, for us also, when we launch a car, it has to be a good mix of it. At present, it is not that it is a complete skew that goes out there. I cannot negate that. I mean, and I cannot predict also that in 1 year's time, I'm going to do that. It won't be right on my part to say that in 1 year's time, I'm going to change everything. No. I will have to keep on testing, as I mentioned to you. In one vertical I have done, I will test it in 2 more verticals. And if any fourth comes, I will have to test it. So I have to have a very good balance, and that is what internally with our agency, we are now debating out that what do you think we should do it, and also with our technology partner, that what ad that we can do out there.
Manish, you've been a performance marketer for many years now.
Yes, and a brand marketer.
And a brand marketer, yes. Built quite a few brands as well. What do you see is the biggest roadblock for programmatic in India? Why does it continue to be small and experimental media today versus at scale like in some of the other markets?
I think it's the stage of evolution, Nadeesh. Let's say if you look 5 years back, Google was gibberish and so was Facebook advertising to a lot of people in this room and across the country. The stage that we are in, and as you see more need for efficiency and you see more need for reaching out to the audience in a very targeted manner, these medias will evolve. And people who are like first movers who make their mistakes. So I always tell my team, hey, go make your mistakes before anyone else so that you make your learnings and you're moving fast. Now, those people are limited to certain e-commerce companies because that's where the bread and butter through digital comes in. Brands are getting into it. I have a lot of friends who run brands across FMCGs and auto sectors. They're very curious. So they're at the cusp of adapting programmatic, as well as they're kind of getting into social is first thing that they're dabbling with. So I would say it's just show results, create more case studies, do more sessions like this, take Ashish around, get people to get convinced. But it's like test blood, and then everyone will be after it. So I don't see any reason it should be a small media play as such. Yeah.
What do you think is the biggest negative about programmatic?
No, there's no negative. Again, like I said, it's up to the marketer. So if you don't curate your messaging, if you don't choose your media and you keep hammering everyone with the same bloody message, I mean, you're not going to get result. So let's be smart about it and use it to your advantage. That's how I'll put it. Yeah.
Hitesh, want to check with you on a business like Nykaa, right, where a lot of the task that you have or the challenge in front of you is also about consumer education about the category and getting consumers to buy into this category, right? Is there a role for programmatic to play in that activity of awareness and consideration building and not just purchase intent? And if so, what do you think it could be that you should be doing more of that maybe you're not doing enough of today?
I think in terms of education, I would still want to focus on media where the moment of interaction is longer, right? At the end of the day, what I get out of my programmatic is still a banner, which a person could see, and probably could have a 2-second interaction and clicking and coming to a page. So maybe if my objective is to get him to a page, which is a blog, which talks about a beauty makeover or talks about latest trend, yes. But at the same time, I obviously have a plethora of, directories available like YouTube, which probably kind of gives me a longer interaction. So I would probably use it for education, but not as my primary source. I would still want to focus on the channels where the engagement is traditionally high. Right now, I mean, if you talk about it, any channel to reach where a Facebook or Google is right now in terms of engagement is itself going to be a very long cycle in the evolution stage. I mean, it's dangerous that everybody spends about 5 hours of, a day on Facebook or maybe 30 minutes a day on YouTube. It's very difficult to kind of, any new player to match up to that level, which has been established over the years of evolution of social media and online videos. So I think eventually, yes, we'll be there, but right now I would focus on the longer interaction media.
I kind of agree with Nadeesh there. So if there are lower hanging fruits anywhere else, please go pluck them first and then go after this. Yeah.
Absolutely. Though I would question the data points on the numbers, but but I'll go to Henry on this one, right? So there is still, and we were talking about this earlier, there is still an ecosystem outside of the two large elephants in the room, right? And what is the role of programmatic outside of just banners, like Hitesh was mentioning? Because a lot of us still understand it as, banners on some site somewhere who somebody may or may not see. So what's the real value from an advertiser standpoint, especially when I need to do storytelling, especially when I need to do brand building? Is this the right platform for me?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to cover this in a while in my presentation, but let's do it now. So I think the value for an advertiser really is to take control of their own audience definition. Now, if you as an advertiser know your audiences and you work with a partner who can help you use your own data that you have within your businesses, can enhance that with data that is available in the market, and you can then define your perfect target audience and even a number of them for different scenarios. And then you can buy those audiences wherever you want to across the whole web. That is the real, I think, future for us as an industry, and puts the control firmly back in the place of the advertiser. Right now, we do have sort of large platforms, media vendors who are putting up walled gardens around their businesses and encouraging clients to work exclusively with them. But you can't use your data outside of those walled gardens. And then also there's massive conflict between those walled gardens. So you're never going to be able to work with both. So I think this is where programmatic really needs to step in is for large clients and small clients alike who want to own that audience definition, want to manage that, and want to neutrally execute. That is where programmatic value comes in. It's a bit of a shift in power in a way. I would encourage advertisers to reclaim that power. Rather than be wedded to a particular platform whose future is unknown.
Are there any interesting examples from clients that you've worked with across the globe where usage of programmatic has helped brands not just on the performance front, but on the core brand building aspect of what they wanted to do?
Yeah, I mean, I look at our business, our Xaxis business across Asia Pacific alone. We are 55% video business, and a very large proportion of that is advertisers who are just doing that to hit an audience, not to deliver any kind of performance outcome, but they are looking to build awareness through reach and frequency against an audience. We bring in other additional measures for them, which might be a brand uplift study, so they can understand whether some attributes have shifted as part of their brand. That is a very large chunk of what we do as a business. And I look at companies like Ford or GSK, who are very much, advanced in that process. Strangely, China is the market kind of leading that. They've really bought into that sort of neutral, cross-screen, awareness-building use of video, and are using programmatic to do that with great efficiency.
Let me come back to Ashish. So again, two questions for you. One, as you said it yourself, so I hope it's okay now, traditional marketer, a large traditional marketer, is there somebody that you look up to in the digital ecosystem in India to say that XYZ is doing something really well and I want to learn from them and do things similarly? And two, for a lot of the other large businesses out there who are looking to take their step in programmatic, what is the learning that you could give them from your experience in taking that first step?
So I will take the second question first. So what I would suggest is don't sit idle. Don't wait for the opportunity to come. That, one will do, the other will. Either you be a follower or you be ready to take the risk. It's as simple as that. It's more philosophical, and that is how we took it. Because you can't just say that, okay, my competition will take it and then I am going to wait for it. You have to have a belief. What you have to see is three things. Is again coming back to the same basics of it. Three people come together, the client, the agency, and the technology. If you three are on the same platform and you believe in it, then you have to go for it. The plus and minuses will always be there. I can tell you every technology that exists today in terms of programmatic has some nuances in it, but which is fine. That first step is always the most important step. And then you start evolving yourself and you start thinking that what next should I do? But you cannot jump from 1 to 5. So at least you come to 1 and then you take the 5 things. So and apart from what I shared, that, don't believe in the spray and pray. The gone are the days when you think about it. I tell you, what is the problem? The problem is that we have evolved ourselves in one set of thinking. See, if I today think about it, the launch plan, how I used to plan my launch, that there has to be big players. And then I used to think, okay, search will also be there. Oh, I miss GDN. Okay, let's include GDN also. See, this is how I have done my planning. That is how my agency also has done my planning. Imagine a situation where agency comes with a very different plan to me, which shakes me up, which makes me believe that this is not what we are going to do. I can tell you I'm going to raise 10,000 questions to them. But if I get convinced on that, it may so happen that tomorrow you will find me not taking those large banners at all. So that is what it is. Because either you back it with data, or you believe, most of it is once we have been doing things, so we believe in doing that. And the resistance to change is always difficult. And that is what we tried to break. I'm not saying that I have come out of the shell and saying, oh, I am a great. There was a lot of risk. I mean, I must admit that me and my team that, we took in, thinking. And that is why when this topic came from Latika, I was really happy, and I was thinking that I'm ready to, take that 10 minutes to share, right? I could have taken and talked about it, but that 10 minutes was important to, share the feelings it's not the feelings in terms of, but it was back with the data. So I think that is, the most important thing. And on the content part of it, we still believe in the content that we are looking into. We are not taking a very extreme thing to it. But yes, I think with more and more belief, getting into reality, I think the change may come soon.
So for you, the big point was a leap of faith, right? It's about taking a leap of faith to begin with.
Yes.
Coming to the data-oriented marketer. So Manish, I'll give you a question which Henry may not like. Okay. But as a performance marketer, what's the role of the agency ecosystem for programmatic? Or is there a role for the agency ecosystem for programmatic?
Let me answer it diplomatically. So I think it's a function of the client and your business. So let's say if I am in e-commerce and that's somewhere I want to drive ROI out of it, transactions day on day, unless you know your business well, unless you know what's working on an hourly, daily basis, you may not be able to get best ROI or efficiency out of programmatic. So the agency role may not be so strong. If you are a brand marketer and if you do not have in-house capability, which Henry and other agencies bring on the table, they definitely have a lot of insights. The advantage they bring is working across clients, across industries, running experiments on behalf of other people's budgets. So all of that. So having said that, I think there's a definite role for agencies. I won't deny that. And many a times, these guys come up with ideas by virtue of the learning and the case studies across geographies. So everyone has to exist in together. Yeah.
Hitesh, your view on that? Similar question to you.
I'm trained under Manish, so I'm quite in line with what he says. But I think the role of agency is important right now until we get the trained resources to work on DMP. Right? Remember 5 years back, you would know like Google could only operate through the likes of Comely Media, even if you wanted to Google search ads, because there were no search ads professionals available that time. Right? So I think till that expertise is there, the talent is out in the market who actually know how to operate a DMP, how to optimize it on a daily basis. We have to work with agencies right now because they have the talent. They have worked on it and they've dedicated years to it. So I think it is, as of now, it's quite important.
I think I agree with that. I don't agree with everything though. But, you know, the point is, you know, when Ashish went through his case study, which was excellent, you know, there's actually a lot in there, you know, and it seemed pretty simple, but there's an incredible amount of analytics that has to be done to understand, you know, the overlap between websites, to understand how the impact of frequency is felt. There's a lot of analytics to understand that pathway and to reattribute value away from that last click. There's a lot of planning that has to be done to define that audience, locations, devices, etc., interests, demographics, and you know, all of that is time and effort. And I think that's where an agency would step in and you know, take some of that role on. Now, you know, in terms of the actual execution of the campaign, the person who's sitting there in front of their computer and running this campaign through an interface, you know, there's a debate as to where that sits. And, you know, as some clients, you know, they don't want to run that in-house. They don't have to hire some guy. That's not their core capability. And I think the majority of clients are at that stage. It's pretty rare. When I look across, again, our business across Asia Pacific, that we find a client who has the skills in-house to do that. I would say the e-commerce companies are pretty much the only ones that do have that digital DNA in their company and that expertise to be able to do that, and that you know, connection to data. So certainly not widespread, but happening within that e-commerce space.
So I'm cognizant of time, and I want to give some time for Q&A, because given that only 5 hands went up when I asked how many people know what programmatic is, I'm assuming there will be some questions. So to wrap up, what we'll do is we'll go across and one do and one don't for programmatic marketing, especially for marketers who are just getting into it.
So one very important do, set your goals right. The most important part of programmatic is the data rules. So figure out and decide what you want out of it. So accordingly, your objectives are set, right? And if your objective is to get, you know, a transaction, do not go for that right now. And the don'ts, one of the things that I would want to talk about is that here in programmatic, what I see another level of problem is the rate of production of creative, right? The media is ready, the dissemination is ready, but the creative is something which needs to be again automated. I know there are technologies like Adobe Campaign which really helps you build creative real time, because if your journey is you communicated to the customer about your company, he showed interest. Now you're talking about a particular product that would be relevant for him. So obviously you need to change all that communication. So, you know, so do not stick with one line of messaging or one kind of creative. You need to find a way to make it as real time as possible when you're running a programmatic campaign.
In terms of do's, don'ts, I think. Don't sit idle. Take the plunge. Have the leap of faith. You will definitely come out with some good information, I must say that. And in terms of do's, don't see this programmatic just from a buying perspective, that it is another buying. You know, it is a science, it is an intelligence that will make the person who is working on this more intelligent. If I may say, that may be the selfish motive of that person. Get yourself intelligent at least. And from an organization perspective, definitely what I mentioned is it will lead to the higher reach from a brand perspective. It will lead to the efficiency. So, and try and have three-party coming together in terms of client, technology, and the agency. Or you push three of them to whatever level it is, and that should be done.
Great. Manish?
Yep. So in terms of do's, definitely have very sharp objectives and define your TG. Don't do anything without knowing who you're targeting. So be very, very sharp about who is going to see your ad and what's the objective. In terms of don't do anything if you don't know how you'll measure it. Unless you know how will you measure the result, you will keep struggling with it and saying, hey, this is not working. I don't know what it's giving to me. So define how will you measure it and what are you measuring for. I think that'll be very, very important. Yep.
I get to go last when all the good ones have gone. What do I say now? Okay. Well, I mean, all those entirely irrelevant. I would say that, let's get back to that quality message. I want advertisers to demand that quality. I'd like India as a market to move more quickly towards the demand for viewable ads. I'd like them to move more quickly to having a very strict rule around fraud and actively supporting vendors who show ways that they are avoiding fraud. So, if there's one do, it's really focus on that quality and, don't just chase the cheapest price at all costs, because that's a one-way street and will probably lead to poor quality media, non-viewable and fraudulent impressions and clicks. So in terms of don'ts, I think you probably referenced my last one, don't chase the cheapest price. So, let's probably leave it there.
Fantastic. So, just to kind of sum up, there were a few things that jumped out at me through the conversation. One was, which I really, really love, from Ashish, don't be idle. I think take a leap of faith. There are many of you in the room who will have data, and a lot of you who will not have data to begin with, right? But the only way you can take a real decision is if you take the plunge, see how it goes, and then keep iterating, right? But before you take that plunge, have a clear objective, right? So if you don't know what you're measuring, you will never know, like Manish said, if you're succeeding or failing. But failing itself is not bad, right? So be willing to fail and be willing to learn from your failures. There are challenges. There will continue to be challenges in the medium term. Some of those Hitesh addressed, right? So there are concerns around cross-device tracking. There are concerns around where consumers are spending time. There are concerns around low-quality inventory. But I think all of those can be superseded by the outcome that you're looking to drive. And finally, going back to Henry, don't chase price, right? So price should be something that is determined by the outcome and not the starting point. I think a lot of us make the mistake of starting with a price and then moving forward. I think we should take a step back and say, what's the objective and what's the outcome we're trying to drive, and then arrive at the pricing. So at this, I'll open it up for questions. We have, I think, time for about 3 or 4 questions. So I see at least 4 hands going up. So if we can pass the mics around. So just introduce yourself and address the person that you want to answer the question.
Yeah, my name is Dave. I'm from HDFC Bank. I have a question for Ashish. Was there a audience threshold or reach threshold or spend threshold before which you started really putting your trust in the numbers that your platform was giving you? And second, was there a reach threshold or spend threshold after which you started really trusting the numbers that your platform was giving you? And second, which platform are you using for programmatic?
So the second question, it is, we can discuss it offline. I don't want to, share,
Sure.
right? Hope you will respect that. And it is initial learnings, but I'm happy to share with you. Coming on the reach part of it, it starts from the planning stage itself, right? I mean, at which stage you are planning to launch the campaign? Is it it's just a launch, so definitely you will have a definitely higher reach, and basis the higher reach, then you see that, okay, what percentage you would want to allocate. And also, as I mentioned to you, that these are our initial learnings to it. So it won't be right on my part to give you a clear-cut guidance in terms of, okay, you need to do this. Right? Next year, as I said, that once you meet me again, that I would be much more confident in what I'm trying to say, basis this, provided the ecosystem has not changed or something new has not come in.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Prashant. I represent Brand Dalda. Here I am. This question is actually to the panel, and I would love to hear your thoughts. My point is, as a first-timer who would probably indulge in programmatic marketing, should you take it up as a pilot and do a small campaign and have learnings and then move on to a long-term perspective? Or do you understand it first, go for a long-term perspective wherein you treat it as a consumer insights generation program rather than just programmatic buying? And if you go with a research perspective to understand consumers better for your category in the online space, how will those learnings reflect the non-digital consumers also that I have?
Extremely complicated question. So just so that I get this right, you're asking for somebody who's starting programmatic for the first time, should you take a long-term view or a short-term view?
Yes.
And how do you go from learnings from that, right?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll give my 2 cents and then I'll open it up to the panel here. In digital, look, if you have a clear objective, within a week or 10 days, you will have a sense of what you're doing, right? So you don't have to wait for 3 months to know what's happening, right? So you need to take the plunge, you need to experiment, and you need to keep experimenting, right? That's the only way to learn. I don't think you can take a 3-year view and say that that's what I'm going to do 3 years down the line. So that's my 2 cents.
No, I agree. I think everything that you do, run a pilot which is defined with boundaries, define what does success look like, how will you measure it, and then go after it. It could be 2 weeks, it could be 1 month. You have to define thresholds for your industry and your media. That's how I would put it.
Hi, this is Saurabh Biswas from Asan Jobs.
Can you stand up? We can't see where you are.
Hi.
Thank you.
So my question is for Manish. So you mentioned something about creatives automation, and so let's say you have a target audience that has multiple segments and is and you want to reach out to people who speak languages that are different, and you want to.
I think you need to take the mic a little closer. We can't understand the question.
Yeah. So let's say you have a very, very TG you want to reach out to via different creatives, via different ads. And you want to also keep on doing A/B testing through design or the content. So in such a scenario, how do you go about it, and what would your advice be as to marketing to this kind of audience?
So when I was talking about the creative readiness, I was not thinking about the wide TG, because it's usually difficult to operate business for a company like Nykaa on a wide TG, knowing that 90% of my customers are women in the age group of 21 to 35, right? So when I say creative optimization, what I say is that you're tracking a journey through programmatic, and there are different actions that people do in each part of the journey, right? There are people who will visit, they'll check out products, they will probably search for products, they will filter products on the website basis price or basis maybe the the packaging. So what we are essentially doing is, whatever action they take after coming into the funnel, that needs to translate into the creative to ensure that that customer is acquired in the end, right? When we're chasing that acquisition, so we define acquisition when somebody has purchased a product, right? Not somebody has visited. So to drive that acquisition, your creative has to be in line with all the action that person has taken, right? Typically, say for a Nykaa, sometimes it takes a customer 28 visits before she purchases something. Now that is huge, right? Now in those 28 visits, there are different things that she's doing. Now showing that lady that one banner again and again, that makeup now available at Nike at 20% discount is not going to get us anything. We'd rather be closer to what she's searching for and maybe hope, a conversion out of that. So it's not about wider messaging for audience. It's basically messaging basis what the actions the customers take after they come into the funnel.
Okay. Thank you.
Hi, can I ask a question?
Stand up, can't see.
So, Rugved here from AVP News, avplive.in. The question is for Nadeesh and Henry. The panel has obviously described and spoken a bit about the programmatic from the seller and advertiser perspective. I have a couple of things to ask from this, from the publisher side of things. The impact of programmatic from publisher perspective. One is, as of now, programmatic, when you talk as a publisher, it's basically an exchange buy, that advertisers are buying the inventory from an exchange like a DBM or Programmatic or from other places, which essentially leads to commoditization of the inventory, which essentially is about devaluing your own inventory, which as a publisher I'm not too keen on. So with increased use of programmatic, would that still be the case, that we'll see increased commoditization and leading to the value of inventory being only reducing over a value of over a period of time? That is question number one. And second is the role of sales guys now in these times of programmatic buying. So if the direct inventory is being bought programmatically, do you see an evolution for the role of sales guys in the publisher team? I hope I was clear with the question.
Let me cover that first point. So commoditization of publisher inventory when they engage in a programmatic sell to a company like Xaxis or indeed anybody else. I mean, I think there is a little personal responsibility that publishers need to take here, because if you as a publisher sell 50% of your available inventory and you sell that directly via an RO, and then you have unsold. Now, it's very easy to dump that unsold into an ad exchange and to set a minimum price, which you probably set quite low because you want to monetize the whole of that inventory. That, as you say, is commoditization. And I would probably say that, there are other conversations, other deals to be struck in the market than just putting that unsold out there in the ad exchanges. We as a business, and it's been quite widely reported globally, are actively trying not to buy ad exchange media. We want to undertake direct programmatic deals, still want to trade using technology, still want to audience buy, but I want to take direct deals with top publishers. And if the inventory is good, if the deal is right, we will pay good prices. If the inventory performs well for our clients, we'll pay good prices. So I think we just, collectively need to, get round the table and strike these deals. We do see publishers moving quite slowly in India. I'll admit that. And, we need to accelerate that because we're open for business in this area, and I don't want to buy ad exchanges.
Hi, I'm Chetsi from Safari.
Sorry, I'll just add 2 points onto that. One, I do believe that inventory in itself is a commodity, right? Audience and data is what makes inventory rich, right? So any publisher, it's the audience that I'm really going after as an advertiser and not the inventory in itself, right? So that's what makes it richer, and that's where the premium comes in. So as a publisher, programmatic could actually drive prices up if you have the right audience set coming to that platform. And the second question, in the long term, do organizations like us and maybe Xaxis want to have 50 sales guys? Probably not, right? You want a lot of the business to come programmatically, to come through data sources, because that's what you want to build over time. And yes, at some point of time, you want to have the right salespeople rather than a huge number of people who are running for feet on street.
In the interest of time, so if that could be the last question. All right. We'll have the lady share her question as well.
Yeah, so my question is to Henry. Considering, here. Considering that we said that programmatic is still an experimental stage in India and developing countries, what is the ideal percentage of marketing spend on programmatic versus traditional marketing that we do? And where do you see it going in coming 5 years, for example?
Okay, I could give you a very quick answer, which is 100%, but I won't be so glib. The point that, and a statement that we often make is, all media will be digital in the future. We're going to watch our TV through digital pipes. Everything is going to move digitally. Our outdoor screens are going to be digital if we peer into the future. All paid media will probably be programmatic. It's going to involve data.
How far will that be according to you?
Sorry?
How far is that according to you?
5 to 10 years.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it will differ by market, but I think, when people are asking how much should I put on programmatic, shouldn't I? It's a movement. It's a change in the way that we buy media. And so, if it fits your business to spend 100% of your paid media budget in programmatic, then okay. If it fits your business to spend 10% and do sponsorships and content with your other 90, then okay. I think you've got to let the objective define your mix. But I can't put a figure on it as a magic correct percentage, I'm afraid.